And we will begin our SatiSeva practice. For anybody who's joining us for the first time, SatiSeva is an affinity group associated with Recovery Dharma. This is a practice of 16 different mindfulness practices, all about reimagining recovery and support. This is the book that we use, SatiSeva, Reimagining Recovery and Support. And we have been slowly working our way through chapter 2, which is the cultivation of openness. And we're now at the end of that chapter. And we are going to be talking about the different instruments of peace that have been introduced in this chapter. And the instruments of peace are very specific tools that I have created and sort of crafted for my own practice as a means and as a reminder to practice. So they often come in the form of mantras, but they're also actual practices, actual invitations to do something different. So today, what I'd like to share with you is I want to read the very last two chapters of the section of non-duality that is in this particular chapter. And the reason why I want to do this as part of a kind of a reiteration and an emphasis on non-duality is because it is the bedrock and the heartbeat of the cultivation of openness. To have a non-dual mind, to cultivate a non-dual mind or a non-dual lens is by its very nature to learn to become more open. And if you're not familiar with the term non-dual, if you'll just give me a moment for a brief summary. In the West and in the Western mind, there is a very heavy emphasis on dualistic thinking. It's also referred to as either or thinking, or you may have heard it referred to as black and white thinking. And so this is the mind that is trying to compartmentalize life in either this space or that space. Something is either good or something is either bad. Something is either right or something is either wrong. It is very, very important to say that having a dualistic mind isn't bad. And if you think about it, even the fact that if we create the categories dualistic and non-dualistic, we're just creating more dualism. Dualistic bad, non-dualistic good. And that's really just not what we're going for. What we're going for is looking at that dualistic mind, looking at those different compartments and creating enough space and being a little bit open to go, why have I done that? Why have I put my life in here and here? And is there more to see? Because the nature of reality is dualistic. It's both of these things. There are things that are good. There are things that are bad. And more. And that and more piece is the non-dual mind. So the non-dual mind says, yeah, my life is both these things, good and bad, and what else? And this is what the Buddha was really emphasizing when he was talking about the middle way. It's about finding that balance. It's about teetering from one side to the other and working with it, being supple enough to find your own way, to extract from each side. Here's some goodness, here's some badness in my life, and now can I work with both of these things to create something entirely new? Here's a visual. You have your hands. So here's the good stuff in my life. Here's the bad stuff in my life. When I bring it together, ooh, I've just created something new, something else. What is that? And that's what we're endeavoring to do when we talk about non-duality. We're looking at what else is here. And it requires a lot of openness. It requires a mind that says, wait a minute, let me put down my habits. Let me put down those familiar ways of seeing things and defining things. And let me just step into maybe just a crack, maybe just a peek. Just a little sneaky peek of what else is there. You don't have to open up completely, just a little bit. Just a little bit. And I'll tell you something, one of the main indicators in the mind and body of when we're not particularly open is when we have that very human response of being defensive. When we're defensive, we're defending usually something familiar, some kind of habit, some kind of comfort. And again, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just simply something to look at. Oh, wow, look at me. I've got myself all riled up. I've got myself all defensive. Would you look at that? What's going on here? I wonder. And the minute you introduce that, ooh, I wonder what's going on here. I wonder. That's the openness. That's where you start to peek in a little bit. And why I'm emphasizing this, friends, is because the dualistic mind, in its habit energy of putting things in these two compartments, is what happens is when we're looking at something that's true, the opposite of it is something false. We get defensive because we're defending what's true and we're trying to protect ourselves from what we perceive or fear might be false. And one of the instruments of peace, one of the tools and mantras I brought forward, is one of the best ways to address our defenses is, wait a second, that's true. I don't have to defend it. There's no threat of something false coming in. That is true. What else is true? That little thing that's true is probably not the whole truth. So when we get defensive, we're just defending that little thing right here because we feel threatened by some kind of experience or a memory or an inner critic that's trying to prove something false, and we don't have to do it. That's true and not the whole truth. It's one of the main instruments of peace in this chapter. So sit back, take a minute, arrive, and I want you to hear this section, and then I'm going to share with you a summary of the instruments of peace. In this section, I was talking about my habit energy of distraction. And because I'm a highly productive person and I'm an energetic person, I am easily distracted and I'm looking for distractions. So this is what I was writing about. When I see myself engaging in distractions because I do not want to deal with whatever is arising, I have an opportunity to treat myself in a new way. I do not have to judge myself. I also do not have to defend my actions. I can simply sit in the awareness of what I am doing and encourage myself to be a little less predictable and habitual. Instead of getting lost on social media, mindlessly scrolling for an hour, I breathe for a few moments and ground myself. Then I gently say, would you look at this? Julia, look at this habit energy, your avoidance and need to be distracted. Let's do something different. Radical. Cultivating openness is an active and positive endeavor. Our capacity to be present to the moment is met with wide eyes and wonder, rather than the dullness of predictability that maintains notions of dualism. Openness allows us to expand our horizons of thought and being. We begin to see that there is always more to a story and to each whole human being. Whether you begin gathering experiences of openness by summiting mountains, staring at the vastness of the ocean, or lying on the ground looking into the infinite cosmos, becoming open brings ease and clarity to life's contradictions, paradoxes, and conflicts. If you're reading along and following along with me, I'm now on page 60, and we're going to talk about the instruments of peace. And today, there are three, and they are sacred world, non-dominant hand, and this is true, not the whole truth. Those are the three that we're working with in cultivating openness. So I'd like to encourage you to close your eyes and really take this in for a moment. Already we're doing something new. We've carved this time. We've stopped whatever our morning was doing and the activity of the day. It's beautiful in Spokane right now. It's just full on spring. It's highly busy, active time, and yet we've slowed down that momentum. We've arrived. You may be in a part of the world where Sunday's over or ending and you're approaching bedtime. And so this is a wind down time, a reflective time. And to be reflective in a very busy, noisy, modern world is radically new. I mentioned the instrument of peace called sacred world. And what that means is using nature as a mirror for one's own inner emotionality, as well as a way of connecting. When you go to nature, you automatically connect with your own nature. And you can interact with so many different things. I've been cleaning up around a particular tree called grandfather black locust on my property, and black locust trees are one of 7 native trees in this high desert area where I live in eastern Washington. And it has really, really long, sharp thorns. And so when I go to gather up some of the limbs that have fallen or the little branches that are fallen, I have to be very careful. You can't just grab them and pick them up. You have to be aware. Otherwise, you're just going to I'm going to get poked, even with thick gloves. So the minute I interact with this tree, I think about, oh, in what ways am I thorny? In what ways am I prickly? What are the conditions that cause my prickliness? Now, if someone were to say to me, God, Julia, you're being kind of thorny today, I might get defensive. Like, wait, what? I'm not thorny. There's that defensiveness. And what I'm trying to protect is this false image of myself. I'm threatened by this image, and I'm trying to perpetuate a false image. And that false image is me without thorns. I'm thorny and prickly sometimes, period. That's true. And that's not all I am. It's not the whole truth. And so when somebody is saying, geez, you're being kind of prickly, there's something in my immaturity that interprets that to mean that somebody's defining the whole of me. And I forget, oh, you're just defining this situation. In this situation, I am prickly. True, you're right. I don't need to be defensive. And it doesn't feel good to be prickly in myself and for others. When people come near me and I'm feeling prickly, ew, not a pleasant situation. However, when I'm in situations and I'm encountering people that I don't want to be around, and I put up my little thorns, they serve a purpose. Look at that. And in that instance, if somebody were to say to me, hey, you're being awfully prickly, I'd be like, yes, please back off. Both and. That's non-duality. Sacred world. What is in your landscape? What is your nature around you? What is the nature external to you? And can you see yourself in it? In this Instrument of Peace section, in the second chapter, I write, practicing seeing yourself and your whole emotional spectrum as similar and sometimes different from your natural surroundings adds a spirit of creativity that supports neutrality and non-reactivity. For instance, the next time you wander a hot parking lot filled with cars and scattered shopping carts, notice your mood. Notice what you feel in your body. See if you can find anything in your surroundings that brings a sense of ease and joy. Allow that awareness to remain as you shop. When we realize how an emotion mirrors a certain place, we become less likely to react to the feelings alone because the sacredness of the whole world feels more present. One of the things I want to add here is, I spent some time, many years actually, in the Midwest. And the Midwest is known for very violent weather. And it's scary and beautiful. Thunderstorms that you can watch roll in from miles away that can accumulate and turn into tornadoes, and it's terrifying and fascinating. And the thing about that kind of weather is the warning system that was developed. And so when I look at and think about the natural landscape of storms and weather, and I personify that, and I think about my own storms and weather, it helps to come with a warning. It helps to warn people, hey, right now, I'm feeling a little stormy. That's all it takes, except that it also requires awareness, self-awareness, as opposed to just mindless reactivity. And it also creates some openness, an ability to see the conditions within of the weather brewing, to watch it, to observe it, and to give others a heads up. I'm working with a memory. I'm working with a craving. I'm working with a regret. That is churning some weather. That is churning some inner emotional storm. And I'm going to need some space to see it clearly and be open about it. This is in such stark contrast to one's propensity, certainly my propensity, particularly in my youth, of perpetually having to put on that happy face, regardless of what was actually happening in my mind and heart. Plaster that smiling face on. Always want to be happy, always want to be good. And I didn't realize I was betraying my own mind and my own heart, but more importantly, I was teaching myself and really limiting myself from cultivating ego integrity. Ego integrity is simply allowing oneself to be exactly as you are. So when I'm stormy, I just let myself be stormy. However, it would be inconsiderate of me to not warn people in my life. I'm struggling right now. You don't need to try to fix me, just like there's nothing I can do to fix a tornado or to shift a thunderstorm. I simply have to witness it and take cover. So for me, when I'm feeling stormy, I create those boundaries and I let people know these are the things I need: space, some time, and then I'll let you know when the storm has passed. So work with nature and allow your nature to be all of it. This is living with duality and non-duality. And the good thing too is there's some playful things that you can do to help embody this practice. Help embody kind of the awkwardness that happens when we begin to unlearn patterns of behavior, when we begin to introduce some insecurity that can come with dropping the habit of always having to appear happy, always having to appear strong, always having to appear keeping it together, and instead just owning, I'm not doing well today. Owning, yeah, I'm feeling a little insecure, and just saying that actually strengthens me. I'm not denying it. I'm with it. That's empowering. And so one of the things that I like to do to put this physically in my body is I use my non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed, and it's funny, I have a twin. I have a twin brother who's left-handed. So when we were kids, we did a lot of stuff together. And he would do things with his right hand to be like me, and I would do things with my left hand to be like him. And so we both became rather ambidextrous as we got older. And so, but it's weird. It's still weird and awkward to work with my left hand. And by the way, I can't cut to save my life with my left hand. So, one of the things that I encourage people to do with your non-dominant hand is brush your teeth. So, here's what I wrote about it. I gave the example of brushing your teeth with your opposite hand, but you can play with this practice in whatever way feels alive and right for you. It might involve noticing how you put on your socks. My habit is to start with my left foot first. To create some intentional discomfort, I begin with my right. A note of caution: take a moment to sit down and experiment with this. I learned that one the hard way. You can also eat with your other hand, or write notes, or button a shirt. Anytime you think of trying something with your opposite hand, go ahead and notice what you notice. Stay open to the awkwardness that arises. Become familiar with the sensation. Becoming familiar with this sensation brings confidence to more difficult experiences. So, what I mean by that, friends, is if you can create in your life and craft in your life some intentional wobbliness, some intentional awkwardness and cringiness and golly, when life is stirring that forward, you're already practiced. You already know, oh, this is familiar. This is like that time that I bonked my gum when I was brushing my teeth with my left hand because that nutty Julia told me to do it. I can do this. I can handle this life. I know this awkwardness. We're all right. And to be able to say that to yourself is so important. And let me tell you, you want to practice this when things are going well. Because when things aren't going well, you get sick, a loved one gets sick, a pet gets sick, something happens to your car or your job. I mean, any number of things can disrupt your life, can feel like the rug is being pulled out from under you. And it's those moments where the mind isn't operating with full clarity because, right, that's what distress is. So when we can practice working with a little bit of intentional distress when things are well, it makes it incredibly informative because you can always lean back and go, I'm fine. This is just a game. This is just fun. This is just messing around and playing. And that is so empowering. So be open. Be open to trying different things, breaking up your patterns. Do not use power equipment with your non-dominant hand. No chainsaws or weed whackers. Please, I don't want to hear any reports of people missing fingers. Alrighty. And let me know what you're playing with. Tell me, send me an email. Let me know what you've practiced with. And I highly recommend writing. Writing is a very easy and just write your grocery list one day with your non-dominant hand and just feel it. Just see what it's like. And I'll also tell you something, and this is just kind of tender, but this also, in a very real but indirect way, stirs up enormous compassion for people in the world, maybe in your life, who have had a stroke, or maybe they've been injured, or they have some kind of disability where their physical motor functionality is challenged. And so it can just instill in you a little more compassion, a little more understanding of what that individual's daily life may be. If you've ever worked with somebody who's had a stroke and they have to do some independent living tests, and just buttoning a shirt can take 20 minutes. Just something we just take for granted, or zipping up a jacket. It's so awkward in your non-dominant hand. And so this can really instill in your own mind and heart some compassion and the resilience of people. Our capacity to adapt is extraordinary. It's extraordinary. So let's practice the next instrument of peace. And this is called That's True, This is True, and Not the Whole Truth. One of our Sangha members is encouraging me to make a sticker that's this is true, what else is true? And I got you, I'm going to do that. Because this is so wonderful, right? It's to be able to say, wow, what else is here? What am I not seeing? Can I open my eyes a little bit wider? Can I lift my head from my habit energy of looking down in this way and looking in the same way, the same space, the same? Can I look up what else is here? What might I be missing? I mentioned being defensive. It's such a powerful, sneaky experience. It's almost automatic and involuntary. Well, that's not true. No, I'm not. Ah. It can even be nonverbal. It's the same thing, right? And then just pause a minute of like, wait a minute, whoa, wow, ooh, look at that. What's that all about? And just cultivating that curiosity. It's such a game changer. I just want to mention from this section about taking stock of being defensive. So what I'm reading here is take stock of how this phrase, this is true and not the whole truth, helps you become less defensive, for instance. Notice if, when you repeat it, you become a little more open to hearing criticism or better able to hold views different than your own. Now, holding criticism is a practice because, thank you for smiling. It is. It's such a practice because it depends too on the delivery. So the message, the critique is in and of itself just a perspective. That's easy to hold, that's easy to manage most of the time. It's how the message is delivered that can be really, really difficult because it can come in layers that have nothing to do with you. So somebody tosses some criticism over the boundary, over the balaclohe, and suddenly you're seeing all of these tendrils flying off of it that have nothing to do with you, all these projections coming at you from someone else. That is way harder to hold. That's way harder to deal with. And so that's the practice, is even noticing. It's like, ooh, fireball. Let's see, let's douse some spiritual water on that one. Put the fire out so I can see what's really being said. Let's unravel all of the tendrils of projection here so I can actually see what's really going on here that's relative to me. And again, that's the practice. And to have some openness, to have some spaciousness around this. Really, openness is about being able to slow things down. Slow things down. And going into nature helps with this. So, for instance, friends, when I'm dealing with criticism that's coming wrapped up in a ball of yarn, and really the center is mine, but it's wrapped up in all of somebody else's projections. If I just hold that ball in my mind, I have a habit energy of racing with it, and I go round and round and round and round, and my mind is a very tight place. It can get really tight. And the more I race, the more I think about it, the more I perseverate on these projections, the tighter and tighter and more clamped down and shut down I get in my mind. So I go to nature. I go to a sacred world. I get some physical, literal openness. And then I can take that ball of criticism and slowly start peeling away some of those projections so I can really see this. Now, we live in a world where somebody throws some criticism and they expect a similar reaction. So it's a radical thing. So when somebody's throwing some criticism at you right away, they kind of want a reaction or a response right away. And the response is typically reactive. So what we can do is say, huh, would you look at this? I think there's some stuff here that might be true, and I want to look at it. I want to take a minute and see what else is true here. And that slows it down. I think you might be right, and I want to look at this. I'm going to slow this down. And whoo, that just cuts the engines to my racing mind. I don't have to react to the heat of criticism, because criticism can be incredibly informative, but it can be exceptionally destructive and hurtful when the delivery is askew. So we have to give ourselves time to work with the delivery to actually get to the heart of the message. And that takes practice. So I'd like to bring us into the meditation, the very specific breathing meditation for this chapter. The end of each chapter concludes with a mindfulness meditation. All of them have been inspired by Thich Nhat Hanh. And this one has 5 verses. And so I am going to repeat those verses a few times for our practice today. Friends, find a noble posture and take a few deep breaths to clear and settle your mind. I know I've given you a lot of information today, a lot of review. And so let's just quietly allow some of that to enter and settle. Allow the words open and surprise enter your imagination. Notice anything that arises. Welcome everything that arises. How about that? Join me in contemplating a potentially startling revelation. And that is, what if the things you see, appreciate, and delight in outdoors, like a favorite tree, a flowing stream or river, a patch of lawn where you've picnicked, a beautiful loch. What if these places, these natural things that you delight in so deeply, also delight in you? Could it be that your favorite maple tree has enough consciousness to be surprised and delighted by your presence, your warmth, and your smile? What if the view you cherish and find comforting also finds joy and comfort in you? Can you imagine such an exchange? And I share this with you so that the next time you go to nature, it's not a one-sided thing. It's not a one-sided relational exchange. It's mutual. What if it's mutual? Let's make it mutual and see what that does for your whole attitude of mind, heart, and soul. Let's add these 5 verses of breathing mantras to help us step into this revelatory thought. Breathing in. Life is full of surprise. Breathing out. Life delights in me. Breathing in. My yard is happy to see me. Breathing out. I am happy to love and care for my yard, or my plants, or my tree, or whatever it is. Breathing in. The river delights in my footsteps along its bank. Breathing out. I find relief in its power and presence. Breathing in. Nature is me. Breathing out. I am nature. Breathing in. Openness. Breathing out. Seeing in a new way. Breathing in. Life is full of surprise. Breathing out. Life delights in me. Breathing in. My yard, my plants, these flowers, they delight in me. They're happy to see me. Breathing out. I'm happy to love and care for my yard, my plants, my flowers. Breathing in. The river delights in my footsteps along its bank. Breathing out. I find relief in its power and presence. Breathing in. Nature is me. Breathing out. I am nature. Breathing in. Openness. Breathing out. Seeing in a new way. Friends, for just a moment or two, let's just enjoy some silence to breathe in and out, being open for anything that's arising, good, bad, net neutral. Just create that openness for it all to be present. You with it, you exactly as you are. Enjoy your practice. friends. One of the things that one of the things that we're endeavoring to do in our SatiSeva practices is we're really looking at the layers and layers underneath what happens when we begin to shift our relationship to negative habit energy. So, for instance, we all realize and we all know that just stopping using drugs or alcohol or whatever it is, whatever your manifestation of negative habit energy is part of the problem, part of the issue, part of the journey. And in some ways, it's the most challenging part, and yet not, because really it's the easiest thing to go to, because the thing that's really the most difficult thing are all of the layers and layers of life, feeling, thought, story that we've been ignoring or numbing or trying to run away from. And being with all of that is what makes it really, really challenging. And so this is why we cultivate these practices, is to be with ourselves exactly as we are, looking at our relationship for when we were using substances, and looking at our relationship to ourselves when we're not using substances. And just learning to identify the conditions, learning to identify the causes, learning to identify what was soothing and effective and what wasn't. And what can we begin to craft and develop so that we continue to have a life that is soft, healing, connected, joyful, resilient, true, real. It begins with cultivating awareness, and that awareness is encouraged by learning to be open. On Wednesday, we'll begin a new chapter, the mindfulness practice of space. And this is a complement to both awareness and openness. Take a deep breath in with me, friends, breathing in, breathing out. All righty. And one of the things that's so, thank you, Lo, for turning on the recording. One of the things that's so just impeccable about being in the presence of these saints is to remember that without them, we wouldn't have oxygen to breathe. We are interdependent. The very things that enable the trees to flourish are the very things that enable me to flourish. And so my particular molecular combinations are very different than the trees, but there is so much about us that we share. We are in this mutuality. They inhale the carbon dioxide that I exhale, and they exhale the oxygen that I inhale. We are in a breathing kind of relationship. So, one of the most healing things to do is to go and spend some time in the presence of the consciousness of trees and to tap into their saintliness and their holiness, their sacredness, which is the same sacredness of each of you and of me too. And to even be open to doing this practice is saying something. It's really, really saying something. So I'd like to end our time today with a dedication of merit. And I would just like to invite you to close your eyes. Noble posture, nice and tall. Breathing in this concept of openness. Breathing out space for everything. And in that open spaciousness, may you begin to experience a little bit of calm and clarity, and may you, by extension, bring that into the world. You'll just naturally radiate it. And you will become that type of person. You've met them before, the people where you just feel better being around them. You're that person too. And all you have to do is look around to realize and to notice just how much we need people to be instruments of peace in a world that is habituated toward violence and aggression. It is a practice, and I want to thank you for sharing your practice with me. Lo has put the link to Soul Center. You can check out our practices. We begin tomorrow at 6 p.m. With John, and we're going to be talking about the Noble Eightfold Path, particularly the first aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path, wise understanding, which also encourages us to be curious. Tomorrow morning, if you want to practice with me, we get together at 8:30 in the morning, and we're going to be talking about working with insomnia. And so you'll have to register for that, but that's available on our website if you'd like to learn a little bit more about meditative practices for anybody experiencing troubled sleep. Just hands at the heart, just deep press, big smile. Thank you for being here, friends. We'll see you next time. Namaste.